Hello and welcome back to Papa B's Old Time Repair and Restoration. I'm Mike, and today we're back on the DI project again. And we're going to do a couple of things to kind of tie up some loose ends on the crankcase. We're going to be putting in the oil slinger on the flywheel assembly. That fits over the crankshaft, and that keeps the oil from coming out around the crankshaft toward the flywheel. And we're also going to install the heart of the oil system, which is the oil pump, and we're going to be over at the bench for a little bit showing some things to look for when you're overhauling your oil pump for a D or any other John Deere tractor for that matter. So come along with us, and if you're new to the channel, something that I really haven't been highlighting as much as I should, but there is an entire playlist on this tractor called the DI Story. It's on my YouTube channel, and we've got 22 other videos showing the day we picked this tractor up all the way through the teardown and up to the point where we are today. So if you would like to do that, please check out that playlist. And there's also several other videos of varying subjects that are on the channel. So hopefully you'll go check those out and find some enjoyment in looking at some of that stuff. So with that, let's get started, and appreciate you watching. Okay, this is the oil pump slinger, and it fits on the crankshaft. The way it works, it has a spiral cut into the back side, and that back side will go up here against the main bearing, and whenever that oil works its way through the main bearing, it will come out of the slinger, and it will hit this groove, and it will sling it down into the housing, and then it will drain back through this opening in the left-hand main bearing housing. Now, it's important to get this slinger positioned, and you can move these after you get them installed sometimes. It depends on how tight this cork seal is on the crankshaft. I haven't had this on yet, so we're going to find out. But I'm going to show you how you position this to get this slot lined up with the drive pin that goes on the flywheel. Okay, we're looking at the inside of the flywheel, and I do not have this flywheel cleaned up yet, but you can see the hole right here that is drilled on the inside hub of the flywheel. And that hole is to hold this drive pin. And if you look at the end of this drive pin, you can see how worn it is. That drive pin fits into the slot in the oil slinger, and if you'll look real closely at the braze, you'll see where I have built this slot back up. It was worn off quite a bit, and this pin is almost wore in two. So the other day I set up in the lathe and I made a new pin. Now, you can buy these pins from John Deere, but I was kind of feeling my frugality and being a real cheapskate, so I just set up and made one. So you can do it either way, but you can do that. But that pin slips right in this hole just like that. And then when you mount your flywheel on the crankshaft, it's going to be hard for you to see. There we go. Maybe you can turn around. You can see how that fits in the slot right there. Okay, so it's important to kind of preset this oil slinger a little bit. And how I do that is there is a special slot in this crankshaft right here. And there's a screw. You can see that this slot is taller than the rest of them around. So there is a screw, the screw's in the crankshaft that sticks up, and it locates this slot on the crankshaft. So that times the flywheel to the crankshaft. So what I did is I counted around the valleys in the crankshaft to figure out where to locate this on the crankshaft, this oil slinger. So we'll count the valleys, which these ones that are sticking up will actually be the valleys in the crankshaft. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the 5th valley. So here in the crankshaft, I'll have to rotate this back around so you can see. This is where that locating screw screws in to the crankshaft to time the flywheel to the crankshaft. So we started counting valleys. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we'll want to line the slot of the oil slinger in line with this valley, and you can see I have some white chalk already in that. This oil slinger has a cork ring in it for a seal, and that seals oil from coming down the crankshaft through the oil slinger out to the outside. And this is a cork ring, and this is part number D2124R, and it's pretty flexible, and there is a groove already made in this oil slinger, so you just collapse this cork ring and you slip it in here, and you make sure that you have it seated really good around here. And I also have put a light coat of grease on that to help facilitate going onto the crankshaft. So now let's put it on. So here is our valley that is marked with a white chalk, and we'll try to work there we go. And you see I'm not quite lined up, but I can fix that here in just a minute. Getting closer. A little bit too far. And you can always move this a little bit after it's put on the crankshaft. It's not a real tight fit. I'm going to get my brass punch and drive that on to the crankshaft, and it will seat right up here. Alright, we have our gasket in place with the sealer, and this is a little snug, but we have it started. So now we'll start our bolts. Now we're over here at the bench, and we're going to do the second part of what we had intended on getting done today, and that is getting an oil pump assembled and what to look for when you are looking at oil pumps. And this will work for any kind of two-cylinder tractor. It doesn't have to be a D. Now on most two-cylinder tractors, the oil pump is down in the belly of the tractor, and it would come out the bottom of the case. It drives directly off of the camshaft. Now this D-oil pump drives directly off of the camshaft gear, but it is in the side of the crankcase. On most two-cylinder Ds, your suction screen is wrapped around the bottom of the pump while it sits down in the belly of the case. On the D, you have a separate pickup. And so we're going to look at all of this and kind of show you what I found. Now, I do already have the pump assembled for, I've got it upside down, for the D. I've already got it pre-lubed, I've already got it clearanced, and we'll talk about all that. But the first thing you're going to take loose on your D tractor in order to get the oil pump out is your suction screen. And your suction screen has got a flange, and you can see on this oil pump housing, this slips right in there like that. So this would come out first, and then these 4 bolts, yeah, there's 4. These 4 bolts here would remove the oil pump housing itself. This is always a good idea, even if you don't intend on tearing down your D. If you're looking at a D tractor that has been sitting a long time, you don't know if it runs or not, if it's stuck or not, or anything else. If it's been sitting a long time, it doesn't take very long to pull this screen out. And that screen generally in the bottom of the crankcase on the D will get all sludged up. All your thick oil, your dirt, everything else lands in the bottom and plugs this screen. And this is the suction screen out of the DI. You can see the yellow paint here. And this is what I found whenever I removed it, that the screen over the suction had actually come off. And that's not what you want to have happen. Now this one can be saved. You can solder another screen on this, and I think the rest of this would be just fine once you cleaned it up. But if you're going out into the salvage yard and looking for one of these to pull out, if that tractor has been open to the elements anytime at all, a lot of times if it is set full of moisture and dirt and everything, this will be totally gone. You might have this little neck right here in the cast, but this will be rotted away. And I've pulled a lot of them out like that. But the 34 parts tractor had a good screen on it, and all of the solder appears to be in place, and it's been cleaned up, and so it's ready to go. So we've got that part of it done. Next will be, what do you need to look for in as far as pump condition on a pump like this. And this would also work for any of the other tractors, because it's something that you want to look at. Now these are the oil pump gears out of the DI, and if you remember way back when we tore it down, the crankcase was full of moisture, and you can see how pitted these gears are in spots. The edges don't look bad, but the down in the valleys and around the teeth are pretty well pitted. Maybe you can get a better picture of the idler gear right there. So that's one thing you want to look for. You want to get as good a gear in your oil pump as you can. The second thing that you need to look for is the surfaces that the gear rides against. Now this is the pump off of the 34 parts tractor, And you can see right here, it looks really good everywhere except right here. Now this is the suction of the pump right here, coming up from the strainer. Comes up from this hole and comes up. And you see a lot of this going on. It's possible that you could repair that, maybe with some type of epoxy that you would trust in a condition like this. I wouldn't just do anything like that. But overall, you want to get the best condition that you can get, and this one is not terrible. So that's one other thing to look for. So I'm going to slip these gears in, and this is the drive gear. This is the one that will have your drive gear off the camshaft on, and then this would be the idler. But even though these gears are pitted, I do want to show you something that really is not bad right here. The other thing that you want to look at is you want to look at this side clearance around this housing, and it needs to be as close as it possibly can be without binding. And then you also want to look at this clearance between the teeth, because your oil pump is going to be driving, and all of that oil is squeezed and carried around through these gears, and so you want as tight a clearance as possible. The other clearance that you need to check is the clearance between here and your cover. Now, I think I've got two different covers here, and just going to let that lay there. I believe this is an earlier cover, and if I remember right, this is the cover that came off of the DI pump. And you can also see a wear pattern in this cover right here. You can also see where the gears sat stationary in the pump and moisture got in. It kind of stained that. Now you can if you have a mill or you have a machine shop that does work for you, if they can hold that, they can skim that off and you can salvage that and make a good cover. Now there's all kinds of covers. The earlier D's had the relief out here in this side of the cover. The laters did not. And then one other thing that I found the other day, this one has an X on it, and same part number. I put this on the Facebook forum, and it was kind of determined that the X didn't mean anything, but there is a difference in the covers, and you have a recess here. And I'm just speculating here, but I think this has something to do maybe with pump cavitation. I could be totally wrong, and I don't have any physical basis to know that, but it does. The way it fits on this pump is up here at the discharge, so it has something to do with that right there, whatever the case may be. But this seems to be the later version of this cover. Let's see, let me get them turned around right, like that. That's the way they would be. That is not right either. This would be the top. Yeah, so finally, I got it right. Yeah, it would be like this, and this would be the top. Yes, so anyway, this one here could also be milled off and salvaged. So you want this surface to be as good as you can. You want the back surface of the gears to be as good as you can. You want the clearances between the gears to be as good as possible. That's the three main things that you want to look at. And then also when you put this gasket on, this will determine the amount of in-play that this gear has, or clearance, if you will. And what I do is I will take a depth micrometer and I will go from here over to here, or vice versa, depending on which one's taller. This one actually feels like that the outside of the pump is taller than the gears. This pump was the exact opposite. So anyway, the thickness of your gasket is also a determining factor on how well this pump will pump. So you want as thin a gasket as you can possibly get that will still allow the pump gears to turn freely and without any chance of binding. And I think I have 3 or 4 thousandths clearance in this pump right here. But I had some factory John Deere gaskets. That gasket was 20 thousandths thick. I ended up making my own out of 10 thousandths material, and I got 3 to 4 thousandths clearance. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to show you the inside of this last pump that basically describes all the things that you don't want to see in a pump. Get this cover off. Okay, first of all, let's look at the cover. You see how pitted this cover is in several locations here, and that is actually pretty deep. So again, you would have to take that down several thousandths to ever clear that up. So it may go ahead and work for you. There's quite a bit of meat in that cover, but this is not what you'd want to put in to an oil pump. Second of all, we talked about the clearance. And I'll remove that gasket. There's what I was talking about. Your factory John Deere gaskets will look just like that. You will need to be aware of the thickness though. So right here is a pair of oil pump gears that have an extreme amount of wear to them, and how you can tell that is you can look on the back side of that gear, and that is dished in. And this being the driven gear, this is the way this pump is running all the time. And you see how much clearance you have between those teeth, and compare it to this one. Even though these gears are pitted, they're a lot tighter mesh. So if you pull these gears out, and you can really see on the back side of them, they have a lot of wear in there. And I can remember years ago hearing some of the older collectors talking about seeing these gears that was all wore out, and I didn't even know at the time what they were talking about, but it's pretty obvious with this set right there. And you can also get scoring on these shafts where they run through the housing to drive. Now this pump will squeeze a little bit of oil back through there and take care of some of that. But that is really a well-worn set of gears, and I'm sure there are lots worse out there. But yeah, it's not good. Now, and here's the last thing. Let me wipe this off a little bit. As you can look at the wear in at the base of the pump. You can see the actual wear pattern going around and around and around. Surprisingly, this one does not have any pits, but it is wore, and every place that you have wear or clearance in one of these pumps, that is a place for the oil to escape pressure. So that's just a brief tutorial on what I know about pumps and gear pumps and things like that. And this really, if you have a hydraulic gear pump, it all is the same. You want to check your clearances. You want it to be in as good a condition as you can be. Now, so what I ended up doing on this pump, and I got in a hurry and I went ahead and put it together before I thought about making this video, but I'll explain a little bit here as soon as I get this started right there. So I had a real difficult time finding a good gear, and as you can see, I've got several gears to choose from, some better than others, and but this one will run just fine, and it's really the only thing it's doing is driving the pump, and it's got a few pits right up here in this very top, but the full depth of the teeth are not compromised or anything else, so we've got that pretty well like we like it. This set of gears came out of the 34 pump, and they were basically pit free, and so they were in good shape. This cover was perfectly smooth, so it was in good shape, and I think I had one pit on the back side down here in this area, and so this is the best that I could come up with as far as building a pump. And you can see the end play right here. I don't have a great lot, but it rolls through smooth. I already have assembly lube in this pump. Does not bind, does not catch or anything with that thinner gasket. And like I said, I put a 10 thousandths gasket in there. So that's the oil pump. So we'll move over to the tractor and get started putting that in. I might add, as you well know, the 34 parts tractor came with a lot of gaskets with it. So here is the oil pump gasket that we're going to be using here. It looks like it's a cork affair. And then this will be the strainer gasket that will go right here. And you can see how old these are. These still have the two-legged Deere on them, and they haven't used that since 2000, 99, 2000 in there. So, but the gaskets that I've been using that have been sealed up have been perfectly pliable. So we're going to use them. So let's move over to the tractor and let's get this oil pump and strainer put in. Okay, we're going to start by getting our gasket surfaces clean. Went over this several times. I believe we're okay. Boy, you hate to open these gaskets in this old packaging, but sometimes you do what you gotta do. Yeah, that's nice. I'm going to use some aviation for my gasket this time. Try not to go just extremely thick. And we will be sealing these bolts as we have most of the others. These holes protrude through the case. Okay, like I said before, this gear drives off the cam gear, and you can just barely see the cam gear right down there through the hole where my finger is pointed. So that is what is going to be driving the oil pump. So we have our gasket on. We're going to start over. Sure, it probably, I cannot turn it that way though. Turn it just a little bit. There. All right. Just had to get the teeth lined up just right. Right there. Okay. Next, we'll get the strainer gasket. Again, we'll use a little bit of aviation. So we don't want any leaks right there. I think that's why this gasket one is thick and it's kind of a very pliable. Tried to do this without getting it all over me. All right. Slip that on right there. Double check the strainer flange. Appears to be good. So your strainer slips right in the hole right there. Now the book says that there is some lead washers that goes on these studs, and I don't have those. So this one had lock washers on when I disassembled it, and I'll see if I need to get some lead washers there for that or not, but we'll get the gasket seated like it is now, and we may have to revisit. Right, and with that, I think our oil system is pretty well complete. Well, that's about it for this short episode on the DI story. Making progress seems like every week, so I certainly am glad for that. I'd just like to say I appreciate everybody who's been liking and subscribing and commenting on the videos. It really means a lot. It really helps the channel. The channel is starting to grow some, so I really appreciate that. So with that, I guess until next time, we'll say so long from Papa B's Old Time Repair and Restoration. We'll see you on the next episode.